This will be our last video on the poem Lakshman by Toru Dutt. In the earlier two videos, we saw the conversation between Sita and Lakshman, and we saw how Sita puts a number of allegations on Lakshman, and Lakshman is deeply hurt by the words of Sita. Finally, Lakshman decides to leave Sita behind and go into the forest. But before going, he tells Sita about the pain that he is undergoing because of the words that she had thrown on him. So, with a heavy heart, Lakshman leaves the place, giving instructions to Sita. So, the last section begins as, "Have I deserved at thine hand of lifelong loyalty and truth? Is this the meed?" So he questions Sita that is it what he had deserved at Sita's side. He says that all the life he had been loyal and true, and is this the reward? Meed means reward. Is this the reward that he is getting for his loyalty and truth? I understand thy feeling, Sita, and in sooth I blame thee not. Then he says to Sita that he understands what Sita is undergoing, and in sooth means truth, and in truth he is not blaming Sita. But thou might be less rash in judgment. But then he says to Sita that she should not haste in judgment. She should not hurry in judgment. Look, go. Look, I go. Little I care what comes to me. Were thou but safe, God keep thee so. So then finally he says to Sita that now he is going, and he says that he is not worried about himself, and he only wants her to be safe, and he prays to God to keep Sita safe. In going hence, I disregard the plainest orders of my chief, a deed for me, a soldier, hard and deeply painful, but thy grief and language, wild and wrong, allow no other course. So, although Lakshman is ready to go, but he feels that by going, he is disregarding the orders of his chief. Now, who is the chief? His chief here? Ram. He is talking about Ram. That is, Ram had ordered him not to leave Sita. But now, since Sita has forced him to leave her, he feels that by doing so, he is disregarding the orders of Ram. A deed for me, a soldier, hard and deeply painful. Now, this is very, very painful for Lakshman. He has never disobeyed the order of his brother, but now he has to do so, and he is pained that he has to do so. But thy grief and language. But then he says to Sita that her grief, her sadness, and her language and her words uh, have been wild and wrong, and her words and her sadness is such that he can take no other path. He has to go into the forest. Mine be the crime and mine alone, but oh, do thou think better of me from this time. So he says that let the crime be mine, but he is asking Sita to think good of him. Uh, we know that what kind of allegations Sita had put on Lakshman. So this has hurt Lakshman, and So he's requesting Sita not to think bad of him. Here with an arrow, lo I trace a magic circle, or I leave. No evil thing within this space may come to harm thee or to grieve. So before leaving, he gives some instructions to Sita, and he's making a request rather, and he asks her, he draws a magic circle, and he asks her not to cross that circle. So he says, here with an arrow, lo I trace. That is, with an arrow, he makes a magic circle before he leaves, and he says that no evil thing would cross this circle. No evil thing would be able to cross this space and would harm her. So he asks him not to step out of it. Step not for aught across the line, whatever thou may see or hear. So shalt thou balk the bad design of every enemy I fear. So Lakshman, he asks Sita not to step out, not to cross that line. Whatever may she see or hear, she should not cross that line. And so shall thou balk the bad design of every enemy I fear. Now Lakshman fears this thing, that as soon as he leaves the place, Sita might be in danger, because the enemy would attack. So he says to Sita that she should not cross the line, and that would save her from all kind of bad designs that the enemy has planned for her. And now farewell, what thou hast said, though it has broken quite my heart, so that I wish I were dead, I would before. O Queen, we part, freely forgive, for well I know that grief and fear have made thee wild. We part as friends, is it not so? And speaking thus, he sadly smiled. So, after drawing the line and after asking Sita not to cross that line, he finally bids farewell to Sita, and he says that although the poisoned words of Sita had broken his heart, but he feels that he would have been dead before he could hear those words by Sita. Then he says, O Queen, we part, freely forgive. That since we are parting, we should freely forgive each other. For well I know that grief and fear have made thee wild. Now he forgives Sita. He forgives Sita because he can understand that the grief and the fear. Now Sita has this fear that her husband Ram is in danger. So Lakshman says that because of that fear and because of that grief, Sita has turned wild, and that is why he forgives Sita. We part as friends, and finally he says that let us part as friends, is it not so? And speaking thus, he sadly smiled. And O ye sylvan gods that dwell among these dim and sombre shades, whose voice in the breezes swell and blend with noises of cascades, watch over Sita. And then he requests to the gods, sylvan gods, that is the gods in the forest. So he requests the gods of the forest to take care of Sita. Watch over Sita, whom alone I leave, and keep her safe from harm till we return unto our own, I and my brother, arm in arm. So he is requesting to the sylvan gods, to the gods of the forest, to keep a watch over Sita and to protect her from every kind of harm till both of them return. For though ill omens round us rise and frighten her dear heart, I feel that he is safe. So, though ill omens round us rise, he says that though there are uh, evil indications around them and they are frightening Sita's heart, that Sita is frightened by all the bad indications around her. Uh, Lakshman is confident that Ram is safe. Beneath the skies, his equal is not. And why Lakshman is convinced that Ram is safe? Because he knows that there is none who is equal to Ram on this earth, and that is why there is no harm for, or there is no any there isn't any kind of danger for Ram. And his heel shall tread all adversaries down, whoever they may chance to be. Lakshman Lakshman has full faith on his brother Ram, and he says that Ram has the power. Has the power to to treat all adversaries, that is the enemies. So Ram, he has the power to defeat all the enemies around him, whoever the enemy may be. Farewell, O Sita, blessings crown, and peace forever rest with thee. So finally, he says goodbye to Sita, and he is wishing that everything be fine with Sita. He said, and straight his weapons took, his bow and arrows pointed keen. Kind, nay, indulgent was his look. No trace of anger there was seen, only a sorrow dark that seemed to deepen his resolve to dare all dangers. Hoarse the vulture screamed as out he strode with dauntless air. And saying so, he straightway took his weapons, that is, his bow and arrows, and kind, nay, indulgent was his look, no trace of anger there was seen. So, uh, he had forgiven Sita, and so no anger could be seen on his face, only a sorrow dark. Only he was a little sad, and that seemed to deepen his resolve to dare all dangers. He was worried that Sita would be in danger behind. So, however, he resolved to dare to face all kind of dangers. Hoarse the vulture screamed, and the scream of the vulture could be heard, and that is an ill omen. And as out he strode with dauntless air. So, with dauntless means courageous. So, with dauntless air, he moved out. So, we can see that a very interesting incident from the great epic Ramayana has been expressed in this poem in a very interesting style. That is, the poem, it appears in the conversational style, and the dialogue form in the poem makes the poem all the more interesting. So it lends beauty to the poem. This is all about the poem. Thank you.